Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis again, and today we have a rather special show for you. We have on the panel Patty Lucia. Now, Patty has done shows with me. Love her to death. Patty has very interesting perspectives, and the reason why she's on the show is because Patty is a no bullshit zone whatsoever, right? When you put something to Patty, she'll give you the exactly what she thinks at any point in time, any day of the week, and twice on Sundays. Patty, introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Wow. I hardly know what to say to that, David. We were joking before the show. I was kind of joking a little bit with Amir about how I don't really, I was kidding. I was saying, I don't really know why I'm on the show. I don't read Akashic Records. I'm not a Reiki master. I'm not a psychic. I don't have a bunch of letters behind my name, except, I did go to college and all of that sort of thing. But I am here because David asked me to. And David always has his reasons, and I trust that. And I love him to death too, and so that's why I'm here. But I am a teacher. I'm still teaching. I teach high school English. I've written a couple of books. I'm working on another one this summer. And that's what I do. I've owned a cafe. I'm a foodie. I believe in kitchen magic, and I believe that cooking with love is a real thing, metaphysically. And so that's a little bit of an introduction to who I am. And it's, David, it's always such a pleasure to spend time with you. And it's especially nice to be spending time with both you and Amir this afternoon.
I'm going to fill in the rest of that introduction since she won't do it. Patty has a problem talking about herself. This lady has written 2 books, okay? And apart from that fact, she and I spend a lot of time examining language and how it is used. And she has some very interesting views. Mary, you want to chime in here? Because the lady is being humble.
Well, that's the sign of greatness. The tree that bears most fruit is closer to the ground. Those who stand up straight are fruitless. So, well, this matches perfectly with what I know about true people with true mastery. And again, having humility is always a beautiful thing. It's a pleasure to be here with both of you. We were speaking about instruments in order to create harmony. And that's what we're trying to do, bring topics which are truthful in the most harmonious, loving way. Love that is not conditional, love that is not motivated by reward. And I'm sure my esteemed panel members would agree, we're not doing this because we want something. We're doing it because we're exploding with this joyful, loving energy. Hopefully what we present here today will be of benefit, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of people that have insufficient knowledge that are hurting people. And then again, even worse, people who have the knowledge but are intentionally wrongdoing. So hopefully some of the stuff we will say will bring clarity. Let there be light. Let everything be examined in the light, and people are clever. Let them use their judgment. Take from this what you will. I hope it is of benefit to you, esteemed ladies and gentlemen listening to us. So
beautifully said. Beautifully said, Amir.
Exactly.
So, I'm sorry, and before the show, I had just dovetailed off of what Amir just said when we were speaking before the show, because I'm into food and food magic and cooking with love. He used this beautiful analogy of musical instruments, taking these musical instruments, bringing them together to offer harmony, create harmony and offer it to others. And I often experience making food that way, particularly soup. soups, which is the oldest, most healing food, I think, for humans. And so there's this experience that I have when I'm making soup, where it's, you put these wonderful ingredients together that have these different flavors, and some are earthy or some are spicy, and you're bringing it all together and you're letting it steep, and of course stirring your love into it, and then serving up a bowl of healing, sometimes to people who don't even know that they are being healed by it, but simply because it's been made with love and it's been made with such intention that it will be healing. So I agree with you, Amir, and I think of it in terms of food and food making.
That's beautiful. So
And
if I may, David, we're going to keep interrupting you today. So buckle
Sorry,
up.
David.
no, I know the first time it's like I'm introducing this is like a blind date, right? So, guys, so now I'm instantly hungry. That's number one. But we're gonna go down that line because, Patty, you brought it up, and it's a relevant topic. In terms of nutrition, spirituality, and food. Oh yes, didn't you know I was bringing that up as a topic? We are going to bring it up. So now, when I was growing up, I was part of the Transcendental Meditation Center, right? And they had these belief systems, which I thought was superstition, but in today's world, I realized that there's some real good basis behind it. One of the superstitions was that when food was prepared for the spiritual person, it should have been prepared with love, and it's usually prepared in silence and stuff like that. And people put energy into the food, so that when you eat food, the prana, the chi, whatever that's in the food, you consume it and you add it to yourself. Now, this is your baby, Patty. You've been thinking about these things for years, so
Yeah.
I want you to chime in and tell us everything that you have to say with regard to that.
I mean, well, for anyone who's looked into Ayurvedic food, one of the first things that people who kind of prepare food in this way is they will say that everything is energy and vibration. And so that's kind of the basis of Ayurvedic foods. And if you look across cultures, you'll see, for instance, that in ancient times and in temples, the people who made the food were very, very revered. And in Ayurvedic medicine, and also in others, for instance, the person preparing the food for the folks who came to the temple and so forth needed to clear their energies, often take a salt bath in the morning, those kinds of things, clearing your energy, clearing your space, so that when you came in to the kitchen, it was actually it was a very reverent kind of activity, it was a very reverent kind of thing to do. It was high. The cooks, these are the people who prepared the food. So food preparers were very, very well respected. And then I look to Ethiopia, and I have so much respect for Ethiopian culture. So deep, so mysterious, so it's such a wonderful culture. And when you look at the way that the best coffee, I think, in the world, but when you look at the way that they approach food, the way they make food, the food that they make, and the way that they eat, and oftentimes they are ridiculed because they do not use utensils. So they sit around and they have their food in the center that's been lovingly prepared, and they have injera, right, which is their bread, and they rip off the pieces of the injera and they dip it into these different things. And so they eat with their hands. There's no utensils. And they feed each other as a gesture of love. They are extending this love to the person sitting next to them. And I often think about, if you think about the energy that has gone into the food, has been prepared lovingly, so it has all that energy in it. Now you are picking it up with your hands. So there's no interruption in the current, if you will, of the energy of love that is now, because it's in your hands. There's no utensil in the way. There's nothing breaking the current of energy.
Yes,
And
something
now
that
you're
the Western
holding it.
world has not
No, not at all. And so you're eating it.
conceived
So
of.
there's no, it's a complete circuit, right? And you take it and now you're feeding someone else and completing the circuit with someone else. So the Ethiopians, I think, for a very, very, very long time have understood the essential, the whole thing about how food is that kind of energy, that kind of love in food, and how we and the importance of how we ingest it, how we keep that that energy going and that even flow into our bodies in a kind of reverential kind of way. So if you look at cultures around the world, you see examples of people relating to food and food preparation in this way. And then you come to the West, and we have become pretty much disconnected. You know, you talk to people in the West like this, and they really look at you. And I know I've had this experience. They look at you like you have two heads. Like, what are you talking about? But I think it's something that we have to return to. And unfortunately, in the West, what we do is we come up with these new fads and these gimmicks and these ways of, oh, we've got to get healthier, we've got to get more spiritual. And so then we do.
Patty, are you saying that McDonald's is not spiritual?
Well, yeah, McDonald's,
You
but
know,
also,
I've spoken to people, and some of them have told me that they've had heavenly experiences at McDonald's. I'm
heavenly.
like,
I think that they have. I think that they have had experiences. I mean, let's face it, there are, and there continues to be in many different areas in our lives, there are people who are trying to scientifically figure out how to create these synthetic sublime experiences, which
Yes.
end up being addictive. And so you have someone biting into a Big Mac, right? And there are all these things that they have created scientific, with their, chemically, that are creating this experience on our tongues, which is giving us this whole experience. And we feel that it's sublime. And of course it's addictive. And then people go back and literally, and Amir, this is what you were talking about, I think, touching on a little bit, where you've got folks who take the knowledge that they have, and that knowledge is used against us. It's used for profit. It's
Correct.
used, so in a way, McDonald's does this, and McDonald's isn't the only one. I mean, the food companies really across the board use these methods to get people hooked and get people addicted to things that aren't even, it's not even food.
Right.
It doesn't even offer nutrition. There's no nutritional value.
Yes. So I would like to go back to one of the topics you started with, Patty, soups.
Mm.
So what's more in soup than any other food? That would be water.
Yeah.
And now water is an intelligent, living entity.
Yes.
So let's go
Yes.
beyond the physics and chemistry of how we would scientifically describe it and look at what it is in actuality. It is the essence of life itself. It changes form in accordance to the energy we expose it to. So we've got a whole field, homeopathic medicine. So what else is existent in food? Fire. So a theme is beginning to develop. Materials that come from the earth. So water, fire, earth, and air, of course, is present. So we're getting to the alchemical foundations of our physical reality, and then comes ether, which is spirit, which is that energy we bestow upon the food.
True intention.
So in fact, it is one of the most ancient, as you said, ancient forms of magic and healing. And it should be looked at an alchemical transmutation process.
That's an excellent point.
Absolutely.
So we've got the 5 elements in there. And therefore, we have to look at food and now that we have a spiritual sort of a theme going. It is, so you're not what you eat. You can have poor food and transmute it. You can have meat that is not ethically sourced, heal the animal, thank it for its service,
Absolutely.
bless it, share your experience as a sentient human with it, and then consume it.
Yes.
And believe me, it makes an incredible difference as soon as it hits your tummy, with the prayers and love and without it. One situation, your tummy is going to start burning. You're going to feel indigestion. The other, you feel bliss, divinity, love. So that process of each step of the way, we're empowering the food with our consciousness.
Yes.
And again, manifestation, magic, creation, it is all consciousness. We're living in a reality that follows the principle of mentalism. It is all in the mind. So that which you bless, or let's say put a healing spell on, or imbue it with healing energy, any way you would like to describe this food is going to benefit everybody that's eating it. Now, even better, when the person's starting to eat, they would follow the process. I'm very grateful for this sustenance. I know there's lack, there are people going hungry, but this is my bounty, and I am very grateful.
Exactly. An attitude of gratitude.
Yes. Blessing upon blessing upon blessing. And then as they're consuming it, they're doing this with reverence, with their hands touching this, giving it that last bit of energy, because our hands are powerful conduits.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot lost in our culture about what food is, how magical food is, how we can turn something that may be poor in nutrients into something incredibly potent. And, this is something that is lost. And then again, you mentioned the example of McDonald's. These guys are organized crime. It exists.
Let's call it what it is, Amir. Absolutely.
From a nutritional standpoint, I got to chime in here. From a nutritional standpoint, I can give you some of the background. From a scientific standpoint, now, Amir, you mentioned the magical properties of food, and most people don't realize that eating is a spiritual experience. There is something that bonds people together when the family sits down and eats a meal, and there's something that happens. So now we look at our world today and so on, and we look at, as you said, organized crime, and it is organized crime, and I'll tell you why that is. Because you will look at a drug dealer down the road who is feeding somebody crack, right? And then you will look at substances like the E-strains. You don't know what these are. They put them into M&Ms so that you eat more of them. Right? You look at MSG. Right? You look at these substances. They were definitely made for the flavoring. Now, let me explain something to you about your body. With regard to the taste buds on your tongue, they deliberately, or they operate at a specific frequency. So what McDonald's and the fast food restaurants have done is entrain the frequency of your tongue to a higher frequency. So when you've had a Big Mac, broccoli is never going to taste good to you anymore.
Right.
If you've never had it, then what broccoli tastes like? It tastes like food. Sprinkle a little salt on it, squeeze some lime, and you're good. Not anymore. Not if you've had it in some sort of fast food version where chemicals have been added to deliberately entrain your tongue to higher frequencies of taste and receptivity so that you can go down. Now, think of what drug does that. Meth, crystal meth does that. The first time you take crystal meth is you're hooked. That's why people, it's the best drug ever. If you're going to be in the drug dealing business, crystal meth is the go-to drug, and I'll tell you why. Because the first time somebody takes it, it destroys the joy center in their mind. The joy center in their mind is destroyed. And they cannot be happy again unless they have that level, right, of release. So honestly, you look at the drug dealer down the road and you say that, okay, that person is a bad person. But then you look at McDonald's, you look at so on. And I want to say something here. Whereas there may not be something as a spiritual diet, deliberately destroying yourself is not a spiritual act. So for those of you who are eating McDonald's every day and said, okay, then I'll just go pray over my fries. No. Food has to have some nutrient value.
So
if I may add something. So now you've made the analogy as food as a drug. let's look at the other side, which is correct preparation and reverence for food. Food as medicine.
Correct.
So there's a profound experience I had. I went on a 30-day water fast.
Mhm.
So that kind of breaks up all the addiction you have to any food-based substances. And oh my God, the first time you taste nuts, cashew nuts, after the fast, or broccoli, all these sensory receptors are back to life.
Correct.
So like breaking a habit of addiction, food becomes addictive. So you see, oh my God, these people are harming us. We've become food junkies.
Mhm.
Breaking that will just exaggerate what's really going on with the taste buds, with the digestive system. So I completely agree. This is just abuse of food and of course, food, we're alive, we have to eat, right? So bringing now into the picture, the system of domination and control.
Absolutely.
If you control what the population consumes, if the population has not enough awareness to transmute this toxicity, both in terms of physical substances and energetic input into it,
Correct.
they're going to be easily controlled. So a lot of the stuff you see with people becoming obese, lower levels of energy, the dumbing down of the population, it's all related to this kind of food. And again, the name is on it, fast food. What the hell? When you're eating, you should be experiencing it, every bite, everything you swallow, bit by bit, appreciating it, revering it for the beautiful gift.
In
that it is.
gratitude. In gratitude.
Yes,
Gratitude.
not just stuffing your face and becoming 400 pounds. There's something wrong here. So a lot of people have spoken about this, but we're now focusing on, in addition to all these chemical substances added, let's not forget sugar. Sugar is probably the worst drug.
It's a monster.
Yes.
Look at what this goddamn stuff did to people in the Victorian era. If you have too much of it, your skin starts peeling off. That's actually a fact.
So Patty and I live in North America, okay?
Ooh.
Where there literally is, from my perspective, from a spiritual perspective, a war on the population, whereby if I am vegan, okay? If I decide to eat healthy, it becomes ultimately more expensive. Theoretically, it shouldn't be.
Right.
It becomes theoretically more expensive to try to eat healthy and nutritious food than it is to eat fast food. And that is by design, because food should never be a product of mass production. It should never be a product of mass production, because all you are doing, and I remember when McDonald's adopted the Lean Six Sigma motif. Lean Six Sigma is a business optimization tool that was used to mass produce cars, Toyota. So what Lean Six Sigma is, you take unnecessary movements, anything that's unnecessary out of a system. So like if you wanted to make a burger, you're not going to pray over it. As an example, that would be considered waste.
Right. A waste of
Right?
time.
You just find the things that makes that burger fry and edible the quickest possible way. McDonald's is an example of a restaurant that did that. The Six Sigma part of it is a standardization part. And so what the standardization means is that the fries in Puerto Rico will be the same as the fries in Nebraska, right? So they standardize food.
Right.
Now, people might be saying, well, that's a good thing, isn't it? No, that's not a good thing, because if all the food is destructive and they standardize it, then that's standardized destruction everywhere. Okay? So like, there's not going to be a McDonald's that is going to be more healthier than the other one. So food should never be a product that is part of mass production. That's the first thing. There may not be something called a spiritual diet, because that's up in the air, right? But for sure, I am thinking that if you deliberately put food that is dead food, the concept of biogenics is that you support life with life. You support death with death. If you are eating dead food, and I don't mean dead animals, I know I'm vegan, but I absolutely don't recommend it for any adults out there. Okay? Right? If you are, when I mean dead food, I mean food that is devoid of life. You fried the crap out of that food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You destroyed any nutritive value that the food. You might as well be eating cardboard. What is the difference at the end of the day? People say, well, it has carbohydrates in it. Let me explain something to you. Carbohydrates, the word means carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. Okay? And not all carbohydrates are the same. For those of you who don't know, not all carbohydrates are the same, right? Because you can eat cake with icing on it and say, well, I'm getting my carbs. Or you can eat a sweet potato. The difference is that the sweet potato will actually promote your life.
Yes.
And what is the name of that cake company? Kiss Cakes? You remember Kiss? The little cupcake things. They used to call them Kiss Cakes.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I know. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they will end you quickly because it's predominantly sugar, posing as something else. And I don't know. With regard to this, I think there is a control factor that happens here.
I agree.
Because I can tell you that your head is a lot clearer when you eat properly.
Absolutely.
Than when you're loaded up with fries and cakes and pastries and so on. That is a statement of fact.
Which makes you harder to control. Oh, yeah.
There is. And I honestly feel sorry for a lot of people because it becomes a question of economics. And now people have less disposable income. So unless you are a farmer, and look, Canada's trying to stop these home and kitchen gardens now. Like, can you believe this? This is like a real thing. Like how they did it in Australia, apparently. I just learned.
What is that?
Anybody who chooses to grow food on their own, I don't care whether they're in a residential area. Turn your lawns into a garden.
Yeah.
Turn your lawns into a garden because things are not getting any easier out there, and you're going to be a slave to some fast food restaurant.
So I'd like to raise a point now, shining a ray of hope and positivity into this situation. That it is amazing how little food is actually necessary.
Yes.
So we have a culture of overeating in the West. We eat far too much, more than is needed. So the hope in the situation is, you've probably heard this, an apple a day, right, keeps the doctor away. Isn't that the truth? So try to at least ingest that minimum critical amount of food that is alive. So be part of the ecosystem, not part of a petroleum refinement facility, right? We're not automobiles. We're living creatures, biological creatures, and we must be part of the ecosystem. So having some in the daily diet, at least get the basics in. So if you're addicted to junk food, okay, it happens. I must admit, I'm now addicted to burgers. Oh my God, and they're delicious, right? But then I do get my fresh berries, my nuts, fresh vegetables also. So when I go on my next water fast, I'm going to clear it all out. So again, with the analogy of meth addicts, we're junk food addicts. We're junky foodies. But if you keep up that minimum important stuff, fortify yourself with
there is balance. There is balance.
There is balance. There is balance. And, I've kind of railed about this for a long time because, I work with children and right now I work with teenagers, but I've worked with children of all ages, and it is, and I think that it's criminal, the amount of sugar we feed our children. So from a young age, and it's all really, it's all deliberate. If you look at cereals, which are mostly sugar, and the commercials that are aimed at children. And so then you have mom walking through the grocery store. And then of course the cereal is at eye level for the children in the cart. And so you have children in the cart saying, "Mommy, mommy, I want, Cocoa Puffs or Captain Crunch or whatever," because they saw it in a commercial. And so no mom is standing in the cereal aisle, with a screaming kid.
Under pressure.
Yeah, under pressure. And so, and buys.
The kid is jonesing like a junkie.
Totally.
Mommy, I want
The
my
kid is jonesing. And
That's
then
a very good point, Patty, because they put the lollipops and thing by the cashier when you're
Yeah,
on your way
the
out.
impulse
It's like you're
buy.
in line, and
Absolutely.
you're
So
in
you got
line.
the kid in the cart who's now the kid is kind of anxious and ornery and is not really very well behaved now because they're at their limit. And so here's a chocolate or here's a or whatever. And I mentioned soda, which I think is one of the more egregious examples of this, where and you have a sugar industry, and I live in Florida, so just to the west of me is Big Sugar, is where all most of the sugar is grown.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize how powerful Big Sugar was until I started doing some research and found that they were powerful enough to get the FDA to accept that on our nutrition labels, where they have to list the RDA of everything, they don't have to list the RDA of sugar. And so you'll go down, you'll see everything, but then in that space there, it's blank next to sugar, because who's going to buy a bottle of soda that says that it's 300 to 400% of the RDA of sugar?
I could chime in here on that argument because I remember this argument. I remember this argument passing through the FDA. So their argument was that sugar is one of those compounds where it depends on your body weight and size, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they said, you can't list it because it depends on the buyer who's buying it. That was the argument that they used. But let me explain to you. The average sugar in a can of soda is enough to feed a horse, right? A whole horse, right? So it's way above and beyond, right? What a human being needs. I don't care what size you are, right? Because they're looking at somebody who's like 110 pounds and they're looking at somebody who may be 500 pounds, right? So it depends, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, even if you're 500 pounds, it's still too much sugar in a soda can.
Way too much sugar. And then here, and I believe in David, you might have heard about this, when they tried to regulate the advertising that Big Sugar was doing, like these big cereal companies, which you look at their advertising budget for Post and for Kellogg's, it's phenomenal, like billions of dollars in advertising, and mostly at children. So when they were called to task for this, the argument that they used to continue to advertise to children was free speech.
That was awesome. That was a hell of an argument. Actually, the legal team that represented them was ridiculous. You got Tony the Tiger.
Honestly.
You got the rabbit, Twixer for kids?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And the leprechauns.
The rabbit that looks like it's on crack.
Yeah.
That rabbit is on crack.
Mm-hmm.
You got Captain Crunch.
You got Captain Crunch.
Right. You got Captain Crunch.
You
Who
got
else is there?
the leprechauns of Lucky Charms.
The leprechauns and the Lucky Charms as an example. And every time there was a commercial, there was people having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas the other commercials look so dull and whatever. Look, Patty, it was insidious the way the sugar industry went after those kids. It was insidious. And so when the research came back, everybody knows that sugar in excessive quantities will break you down. It will get you fat. You're going to suffer from diabetes. It's really, 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 really bad, right? You got people drinking 6 Cokes a day.
Absolutely.
Like they will not one glass of water, 6 Cokes a day. We're getting the liquid in because there's water in Coke, right?
Well, would you agree it's addictive?
Yes, it
would
is.
You agree
and they came up with other insidious ploys, like what the hell is Coke Zero? You're telling me that Coke Zero is better than regular Coke, and I'm like, no, it isn't. It isn't. Because what you are trading, oh my God, you're trading glucose for saccharin.
Yeah.
Like since well.
A carcinogen, what is it, a
Right?
carcinogen?
Like
Right,
seriously?
right.
So,
So,
you won't die of diabetes, but you might die of cancer. Like seriously, guys, look.
but
And you know, didn't they do a study at Penn University with rats and sugar and cocaine? You remember this, Amir? You're shaking your head. It's so they had rats with, you know, the little water bottles, you know, for the rats, and they can go and they can drink the water. All right, so
They like,
in one,
they like the sugar better.
yeah, exactly. So in one cage was the sugar and one cage was cocaine. But then what they did was they had the floor, and they would give them electric shocks when they would drink. And so the rats that were addicted to the cocaine stopped because it's like, you know, the shit hurts. But the rats that were drinking the sugar water kept going. So they concluded that it looked like sugar might be more addictive than cocaine.
Yeah, Mary, you wanted to say something?
I just want to point out that this is no accident.
Mm.
It is intentional, absolutely. And the fact is, it's been going on for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Now look at the introduction of sugar to the Western world.
Mm.
That is what fueled the Industrial Revolution. Let's look at the example of England. A normal factory worker would work for 3-4 hours and they'd be wasted. They couldn't work anymore. Give them some sweet tea, and then comes in tea also, excessive caffeine.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's basically pumping the population with a very deadly stimulant
Yes.
to raise productivity,
Yes.
and the side effects be damned, they don't care.
That's
Look
right.
at how the slave population was treated in North America. They were hooked on sugar, saturated fat, and cocaine and opium, all the drugs that they could find.
Right.
To hook these poor human beings, to just make them work harder.
That's
So
right.
if their life expectancy goes down to 35, well, no problem, they're just slaves, right? But
That's
now
right.
this is being done globally to the entire
Mhm.
population.
Exactly. That's why we graduated, Amir, from tea to coffee,
Yeah.
because coffee has more caffeine.
Yes.
So when you see that sign for Dunkin', you know,
I
America
can't-
runs on Dunkin', it's like, yeah, you're
Listen,
right. Caffeine and sugar.
It's so sad. Look, my main problem with this nutrition war that is going on is that the advertising is so sick,
Yeah.
right? So now I wouldn't have thought that they would have made coffee sexy. Like with coffee, right? Like I wouldn't have thought that they would have made coffee sexy, but coffee is sexy. You got
Yeah.
your, like, I didn't know there was so many kinds. I don't drink coffee, okay? But in Canada, if you go to Tim Hortons, the list of different kinds of coffees that you can have, right? Right? You got double espresso, you got all sorts of different cool names, like alcohol, right? Which,
Mhm.
by the way, the most addictive alcohols have sugar in them, just so we clear. That would be wine and that would be rum. What is more destructive than rum, right? So that would be wine and that would be rum. If you have a rum punch as an example, let me just give you guys, because I did do the nutrition thing. So for those of you who don't know what else sugar does, apart from the fact that sugar is addictive, let me give you some facts, a little bit of trivia for you. If you add any other substance to sugar, then that individual absorbs the substance faster.
Yes.
All sugars break down into glucose in your system. They feed your brain. Okay? So as an example, if I gave you a rum punch, guess what's in the rum punch? Sugar. It's made out of sugar. It's nice and sweet. For those of you who've had like pina coladas, what is the other one? Rum punches and stuff like that, and you're drinking it and you're wondering why you get drunk faster on a rum punch, it's the sugar that's making the absorption happen.
Absolutely.
So if you went on holiday to a nice Caribbean island and you found yourself, I don't know, singing Bless O Canada or Bless America or whatever on the seashore in the middle of the sea, that would be the reason why. There's another issue, a little bit of trivia here for you. If you put sugar, there's a reason why you give children sugar pills. Okay? So you want to feed a child aspirin. Everybody knows what aspirin tastes like. Nobody wants that in their mouth. Okay? So they added sugar around, sugar coating around the aspirin. And yeah, let me pop some more of these aspirins, okay? That's basically how that works. But then when the aspirin gets into your stomach, it helps you absorb the chemicals from the aspirin a little bit faster. These are the things that people don't see when it comes to sugar. But one of the things that which is really not a good thing for kids, is that simple burning sugars, there are different kinds of sugars. The sugar you get in a sweet potato, okay, will burn slowly in your system. The sugar you get in a kiss cake or icing on a cake is a fast burning sugar. So it raises you up and drops you down, right? Which is not good for kids' metabolism at all. You're destroying your children when you give them fast burning sugars, because they're going to be used to the up and down. It's like giving a child Red Bull. Would you give your child Red Bull?
Oh, absolutely not. And a lot of those, like I think we're graduating from coffee to these energy drinks now, and many of them are banned in Europe. But like you have the Monster drinks and the Red Bull and all of that. Really, it's like diabetes in a can. And one of the things, David, just to dovetail, exactly, is one of the things that's happening is type 2 diabetes in our country, in the United States, and maybe in Canada, I don't know, but definitely in the United States, type 2 diabetes, which is an adult onset diabetes, which is brought on by food choices, basically, or a lifestyle, not type 1, is increasing in younger children, in younger children and teens. So now you've got teens who should not be anywhere close to type 2 diabetes now becoming, having type 2 diabetes. And it's all because of that, that roller coaster thing you were talking about. So your body goes on that roller coaster all the time. And at some point, it loses its capacity to process the sugar. It goes completely out of balance.
Because your brain uses the glucose. Glucose is not sugar when it's in your body. Glucose is what your brain uses to fuel itself. Your brain does not need all of that glucose. When you ingest it and it dumps it into your bloodstream, and your brain gets that hit, when your brain gets that hit, you can't think clearly. Your hands shake.
Yeah.
So I would like to introduce another ray of light and hope into this rather dark situation. Even though, so the incredible machine that this body is.
Right.
Again, there have been studies, not very well published, that even if you get type 2 diabetes, there are cases where people go on the water fast, and the body learns how to process sugar once again.
Recalibrates, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So even in this dark situation where a powerful narcotic like sugar is literally pumped into us like goddamn chickens, we're just force-fed this that makes us run faster on the hamster wheel. Again, if something goes wrong with the body has the wisdom and the ability to fix itself if you just cut the poison for a while.
Yes.
So there's this fear ingrained in us. If you don't eat for a week, you're dead. That is bullshit. Please. Our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. They did not get steak every single day. They would go hungry for 3 weeks. And yet here we are. That means after 3 weeks of starvation, you have the ability to run down a buffalo and hunt that thing.
That's right.
Right? And then you go down, when the sugar goes out, you go into ketosis, where you're burning fat reserve. And oh my God, the body loves it. The brain adores it. You just have to experience this sense of elation, how sharp your mind is. And if you're a spiritual person, your intuition, your, let's say, spiritual abilities go tenfold. So there's a reason everybody that is spiritual, including Jesus, the Buddha, they
fast.
Yes? So if you want to see the light from within shine brightly, heal the body, soul, and mind, fast. right? Fast, don't go crazy with it. You don't need to do a month. I didn't do 1 month in the beginning. Do
So-
4 days.
So, Amir, we're trading fast food for just fast, right?
Yes, there you go.
Yes.
Trading fast. I think we're going to name the show Fasting or Fast Food.
Yeah, so it's fast food or food fast.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And again, going back to what Patricia started with the soup, that key to life is the water in that soup that you have blessed. So body needs minerals. If you want to go on for a month, the minerals are important. Otherwise, your body's going to go into shock, starting with muscle cramps and so on. So you add a little bit of Himalayan salt, which has, by the way, 99.99% of everything you need in terms of minerals. A tiny bit of Himalayan salt in your water. Drink that water and let the body clean that backed up garbage that's destroying your liver, destroying your brain,
Yeah.
destroying your digestive systems, your nervous cells, the covering on the nervous cells. It just goes on and on and on.
Yes.
So it's not a foregone conclusion. We're not doomed. Just
We definitely are not doomed. And I want to spend some time giving these people some nutritive tips, especially people in the spiritual community. I want to touch on the other side of sugar, which is the lipids. For those of you who don't know what lipids are, they're fats, okay? So here's a rule of thumb. If food tastes really, really good, chances are there's fat in it. Fat could be in the form of oils. Most likely it's oil and so on. So the reason why you like fried foods is because of the fats. If there was no fat in McDonald's fries, you wouldn't eat them. Okay? But I'm going to give you a few trends that have happened in the dieting industry. So they realized at some point in time that they couldn't make people stop eating. So I'm not suggesting this for you guys as a solution to your sugar problem, but there are enzymes and substances that you can buy that block your tongue from being able to taste sugar. So that would be actually a good experiment for a lot of you. Take the substance. It's called a carb blocker. Take the substance and then go eat yourself some M&M and see what they taste like without you being able to taste sugar. You will never eat M&Ms. You will never eat any of the foods that you're thinking of again, because once your sense of taste of sugar is negated, oh my God, no, you're not going to eat a whole bunch of stuff. You'll be like, but why? Why have I been doing this to myself? So that's a good experiment that you guys can actually have. There's lots of products on the market that way. But it was an interesting way of getting people to stop eating sugar. When you're talking about fats, however, the thing about fried foods is that you don't actually have to be able to taste them to know that they taste good, because you can block off somebody's sense of smell. And so you stand outside the house of somebody who's frying up some good, I don't know whether it be fish, chicken, whatever else. Instant reaction, right? And so you can't get around fats that kind of way because you can't necessarily smell sugar, but you can smell fats. And so when the thing about fats is that when it breaks down in your system, it dumps sugar into your bloodstream. For those of you who need a little lesson on nutrition, let me give it to you like this. I'm going to break down the whole nutrition process. Let's break down the digestive system first. You got your mouth, incisors called incisors because they make cuts, canines called canines, literally because they tear things, and molars are called molars because they crush things. Put food into your mouth. A lot of y'all don't chew your food properly.
No.
That's a spiritual thing. Because I will, this shovel. You are not a snake. Don't be shoveling food into your mouth, okay? Then it goes into your esophagus, and it's like peristalsis begins. So what happens is that this happens, and it pushes it into your stomach. For those of you who suffer from heartburn, the reason why you may suffer from heartburn is because you've been shoveling food into your mouth, and you have not been chewing them and making a bolus out of the enzymes that are your saliva starts the breakdown of food. If your saliva doesn't get a chance to touch the food and you're just throwing it in like you're throwing a ball down a hallway, right? Then the pre part of breaking down the food does not happen. And so it goes through your esophagus and it enters your stomach. The reason why you have had heartburn is because that valve that's there, there's a valve that's there, it has a problem because it's being treated badly. And so stomach juices come up into your esophagus, which burns, heartburn. Just so we know what kind of juice that is, it's called hydrochloric acid.
Pretty
That's
strong
what your
stuff.
stomach uses to break down stuff. So you all are probably, hydrochloric acid, you mean like in chemistry? Yes, that hydrochloric acid. That will break down anything and it lives in your stomach and you're still walking around. That's how amazing you are as a human being. Hydrochloric acid lives in your stomach and you are still protected, but you're like, why doesn't it burn a hole through me? Because you're a human being and you're powerful. And God made you that way, right? And so that's where things began to break down. Now, a lot of people suffer from gallstones. A lot of people suffer from a liver issue. The gallbladder and your liver here, gallbladder in the middle, stomach. Liver pushes bile, it breaks down your food. Into your gallbladder, it's stored there, stored into the stomach. Why do you guys suffer from gallstones? You guys suffer from gallstones specifically because you have bad digestive practices. Because if you eat badly, you will destroy the flora inside your stomach. So you're going to be using a lot more of your digestive juices just to break things down. And then from there, you got the large intestine, and then you got the small intestine, and then you got the large intestine, which basically evacuates waste from your stomach. So I think a lot of people, they make several mistakes down the line, but it all starts with your mouth and what you put into it and how you put it in. So my suggestion, if you want to change your health from now, learn to chew your food properly. Learn to take your time to eat. Eating food is not, oh, I only have 5 minutes for lunch. Let me just throw that in and hope for the best. You are going to, over a period of time, destroy yourself. So you guys got to do that. A lot of people have bad practices, like they drink carbonated drinks while they're eating food. Oh my God. Can you imagine eating a Big Mac with a soda?
That's how it comes. It's crazy. Do you know, as you were talking, David, I was thinking, because I love metaphors, and I was thinking that the way we eat is really a metaphor for how we live our lives.
Correct.
And so if you really want to look honestly about how you're living, how you're approaching your life on all levels, right? Emotionally, spiritually, physically, then look closely at the way you eat.
Correct.
And I think that there is an absolute parallel way we approach eating and the way we approach life. And I say this not as a critique of others, but I say this as someone who had to take a hard look at that myself.
Correct.
And I learned so much, and I had to really look at that and bring my level of awareness much more like, I thought I was aware. Oh no, I needed to go much deeper. I needed to take a much closer look, a much more honest look. Not beating myself up, but looking really honestly at that and how it does reflect and has always reflected the way I live my life. Yeah.
That's beautifully put. We all talk about self-care and self-love and how important, how primary that is. What is more important than that which we have to do frequently, eating? So if that's done poorly, I completely agree. That's an indication of an outlook to life. That fueling the body, this incredible machine, is done with haste and with irreverence. So it also correlate with a lot of other stuff we do to ourselves.
I actually want to pick that up as well, Patty, because it's true on so many levels, even the way we communicate with others and bond with others.
Absolutely.
Right? Food has always been a communal activity. It has always been. Um, and I think that when it is that people start to share food together and so on, there was that ritual, so to speak, was a bonding ritual between people.
Mm-hmm.
And what is more, and that is primal to the human existence, because from the time you're born, you are sharing the food of your mother.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere along the lines it goes off the rails. But the fact of the matter is, you share the food of your mother, you sit down there, and that is a bonding experience. When people make food for you and so on, that is a bonding experience.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot less of that now. I think that that's happening. But I think that's something we absolutely need to bring back.
Oh yeah. Eating as a ritual of eating, sharing meals. Absolutely.
What about preparing meals together, even preparing meals together? And I think that's something that also needs to happen. There are a lot of couples and so on, where the woman does the work and so on, right? And I think that needs to be actually revamped, because I can tell you, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a manly man or whatever else. Get inside that kitchen and peel the carrots. Peel the carrots, put your energy into it, right? And a lot of people do not do that nowadays. Some of it is cultural, some of it is not, right?
Well, I mean, speaking of cultural, David, though, really, I have met, and you probably have too, and Amir, you probably have too, met a lot of women who say, I don't cook. I don't cook. So it's not just there are a lot of guys who like to cook and some men who don't, but there are a lot of women, there are more and more people who look at a kitchen, and I think the energy of a kitchen is very, very important. How you look at your kitchen, the kind of intention, how you keep it clean, all of that. The kitchen is it's an energy center, right? So how do we even approach our kitchen? And often the way that people even look at their kitchen or you think about their kitchen as a place of drudgery, as a place of work. I don't want to go there. I don't want to have to chop stuff up. I don't want to really clean, and I don't want to prepare food. So it is it's like it's not seen as a place of joy. It's not seen as a place of ritual and connection. And this is let's come together to make
it a place of oppression as well, huh?
Ah.
A lot of political groups is seen as a place of oppression.
Yes.
And that should never be the case, because eating is fundamental to sustaining life.
That's how we've inverted that in our culture.
I'm going to take it even one step worse, David.
Please.
The kitchen is where we keep our microwave. That's pretty much the worst case scenario. Otherwise, and that's what it's coming down to. Microwave this, microwave that. Nobody really. So yeah,
we have these companies. The best thing that has happened is we have these companies that will take you farm produce, like Chef's Plate, and what's the other one? They give you the ingredients to prepare things, right? They make it, they dumb it down and so on.
Food kits.
The food kits. And even these companies are struggling right now. And I'll tell you why they're struggling, because even that is too much effort for people. I'm like, oh my God. Like if somebody gave me the ingredients, the exact amount, I don't need to measure anything, whatever else. You just got to put it together and put it in a pot. I'm like, yeah, okay. But even that is too much work. So don't expect to see a whole bunch of people nowadays making bread from scratch. And Patty, on the concept of bread, let's talk about fennel bread.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things. I just, because I like fennel, so it's kind of a thing. I think it's an ancestral thing. So when I make fennel bread, and I actually, for the most part, when I make fennel bread, I'm making it as an offering on my altar. Like I put it on my altar as an offering for the ancestors, and I really try not to eat it myself. I try to stay away from the carbs. So I often I'll make that as an offering. And so the reason why David is bringing it up is because when we've gotten together a couple of times before, he's asking what, he asked me what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm making fennel bread, so it's like this thing now that we
People
talk
still
about.
offer food to their ancestors, and is that ritual still practiced nowadays?
Well, I think that not a lot of people keep altars, but I do keep an altar for my ancestors. Now, I will say that years ago, when I was introduced to altar keeping, I did it in a half-assed way, and I quickly learned that's really not a good idea.
No,
So
no, it isn't.
we talked about this in another show, David. So I have I've come along in that way, and so I do keep an altar for my ancestors, and I will like if I've made fresh homemade pasta, I'll put some on the altar for them, because I'm of Italian descent and also Irish, and so I'll put the Irish whiskey on the altar, and I'll put some limoncello on the altar. I'll put certain things, always chocolate and things like that. So I do.
I'm always so impressed when people actually show that kind of reverence. That stuff is becoming less and less. And I want to say something on this show, guys. The concept of reverence is becoming a lot less, right? Whether it be your ancestors or whether it be the universe, whatever you want to call it, right? There's the concept that you are not alone in the universe. You are not the center of the universe.
Yes.
It's a very powerful thing that you are an operative, connective part of the universe. And so you demonstrate that in outward manifestations, whether it be keeping an altar, as Patty said, or just simply just taking your mind and saying, today I am alive. Thank you, universe. And oh, look at what you brought me. Fruit salad.
Yes.
So these are the kinds of things that you want to do because it's an energy exchange. And when there is no energy exchange, you have stagnancy. And there's nothing worse in a plumbing system, so to speak, than a blockage.
Oh, absolutely. People experience it all the time. I agree with you about reverence. I think that there are really, really simple ways that we can bring reverence back in to our lives, and people don't have to do these big dramatic things, and people don't have to go out and make a home altar tomorrow because they heard it on the show. But I think in these in moments, for instance, when you're driving to work and you look up through your windshield and you see those beautiful clouds and that sun and the blue sky or whatever, even if you see the rain, that everything, you can look at everything as sacred and as beautiful. Find the beauty in things, and that will connect you. Get out in nature, and even if you don't live in nature, there are things of beauty all around that will help us get to those moments of reverence. And I think if we can start there. And I also, both you and Amir made references that I just wanted to touch on. Like both of you said, we have to focus our minds, like it was kind of mind-centered. And I might have a little bit of a disagreement on that.
Sure.
Because I think, not that, but I really honor what you guys are saying, though often I think that we have a tendency to be more mind-centered. And in fact, it is the heart that gives out more electromagnetic, it's like 100 times more powerful than the brain. And so we have this whole toroidal field that's coming out from our bodies, which comes from the heart. And when you think about how, when we're born, when we're developing in the womb, right? The very first organ that develops is the heart. The second organ is the tongue. Interesting, right? We've been talking a lot about food and the magic of the tongue. And I think that the tongue is like more mysterious than even we can comprehend. And then you have the brain, right? And so I think that, and even if you look at religions, right? If you look at the Christian religion, the Sacred Heart, guard your heart, there are all of these references that great spiritual leaders have made to the heart. I mean, even the Egyptians, when they were embalming people, right, and they were putting them away, to go off to the spirit world, I think they got rid of the brain. They were like, they're not going to need this there.
Yes.
They didn't put that. They didn't put that in one of those sacred little vessels. They got rid of that shit.
That's hilarious.
In a vessel.
I think I have an answer for you.
Okay.
I think I have an answer for you.
All right.
So the answer that I would probably have for you, no, I agree with everything you just said, first of all. Let's start with that. Okay? But the reason why we say focus the mind and we don't say focus the heart is because we tend to theoretically think of the heart as an expansive vessel, and we tend to think of the mind as a zeroing kind of a vessel. So I am going to go somewhere in between and challenge you to something called heart mind. Yeah, I would go there.
Awesome.
I would have to challenge you on something called heart mind, honestly, because the when you think about the heart, focusing the heart it seems a little bit counterintuitive. Like let me explain what I mean by that. In our the Greeks gave us a standardization of love. Okay. So they actually had a pyramid for different kinds of love, and I want to share it with the audience. At the bottom of the barrel of the love, the bottom love was eros. That would be the relationship between you and another man or another woman or whatever else. The romantic. That was at the base and the bottom, right, of the ladder. Okay, and the reason why it was at the base and the bottom of the ladder was because it came with conditionalities. How you look, probably who you vote for, who knows what toothpaste you use. It depends. It can get from very simple to quite ridiculous, right? It came with conditions. The next step up there was the friendship between friends and so on. Okay, still came with conditions, right? Your friend might decide that they don't like fennel bread.
Right.
You can't be friends anymore after that. God damn it, no, right? So right, so the next step up from that was actually the love that exists between family, filials, right?
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
And so it came with less conditions because your brother could be still your brother.
Right,
Blood
still your
is
brother.
thicker than water.
Blood, yep.
But at the top of that ladder, when you're talking about love, was something called agape, which is open, expanded love for everything and everyone, seeing everyone as a soul.
Yes.
Seeing everyone as a soul, not seeing everyone as somebody walking around the place with political this and political that, religious this and religious that. So agape but it was always thought of as the higher up the chain of love you go, the more your heart expands outwardly, which was not necessarily a focus thing. In terms of the intellect now, let's go to Plato and how he thought. Okay, so he had a construct of mind. For those of you who've read Plato's Republic, at the bottom of the ladder, just so that we're clear, were the people who did manual labor. Okay, they lifted things, they brought things to the hand, and they weren't really thinking. At the middle of the ladder, he put people who were emotional, who used their emotions to do jobs like the police or whatever else, emotional caregivers and things more in the middle. But at the top of that ladder, he put the philosophers because they were the ones that saw into the real world, according to him. Get into a philosophical argument, right? But this is how Plato saw it. But you see, the two different ways of thinking has colored the way we perceive how the heart operates and how the mind operates. And Plato's Republic went in a triangle like this, right? The Greeks went in a triangle like this. But notice that the Greeks thought agape, the expansiveness of the heart, was the top form of love. It was not focused on one person. It was focused on everybody.
Everything and everyone.
Everybody.
Yes.
And that, I suspect, is where we get those distinctions from. But it's very interesting to see how people thought, right? Because Plato was like, philosophers should be at the top of should rule society because they could see the real world, according to him. So from his perspective, there is a chair. The person at the bottom of the ladder will see a chair. The person in the middle of the ladder will have a reaction to the chair. But the philosopher, what he would see was chairness, charity, right? And so that's what he thought. Honestly speaking, I don't know in terms of the philosophies how this all got mixed up, but I tend to go somewhere in the middle because when there's an opposition, I'm going somewhere in the middle. I'm going to go like heart mind. My heart focuses on everyone.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now, if I may, I'd like to reconcile both.
Yes.
That there is an element of willpower,
Yes.
exerting your will consciously, but it's always a good idea to add a hefty dose of love to everything you do.
Yes.
Mm.
So these will complement each other and not oppose each other. So thinking of this, the intellect coming down into the heart, landing in the heart, then it becomes supreme.
Mhm.
And therefore, both of these points of view are very valid.
Mhm.
So there is a place for thought, and then there's a place for throwing it away, as you brought the example of the Egyptian mummies. That's just the conscious mind is only there to guide us to survive physical reality.
Yes.
And we know the human being is much more than just the physical. That's the heart is the seat of the infinite. It is where the mighty ocean is fit into one cup.
Mhm.
So that is very primary, but then that mighty ocean will go to waste if we don't guide it through this physical reality. So
Mhm.
as living beings, we need the mind, but as immortal beings, the heart is everything.
Which would bring us to the concept of the empath. I have often said on many, many shows, and I know a lot of people disagree with me. Y'all could disagree with me. Of all the gifts, spiritual gifts that are useful, the empath is the most useful, and I'll tell you why. You could be precognitive, you could read the Akashic records, but if you're empath, you're useful to other people, not just to yourself.
Mm.
Absolutely, right? Like there should be a site for empath dating. Okay? Because
so long as
the value of an empath is that if you are involved with an empath, that is another pair of eyes to look at your reality that you don't have.
Mm.
An empath will see your blind spots. They will see your blind spots. Not just your future and your past and your present, but they will see everything that you don't see.
Mhm.
And so I tend to think of empaths in the most reverence in terms of how they operate. Having said that, the only person that may have a problem with an empath is the empath themselves, right?
Mm.
Because there's an old joke, an empath walks into a bar. That's it. That's the end of the joke. That is the joke right there. Right?
But that would be amazing. But the empath dating, who judge how empathetic you are?
Mm.
Well, I suppose we'll probably have an empath test. Like I wonder how that would work. Like
Yes, you have to.
empath questionnaire. How do you feel about this questionnaire?
Yeah, and I also think like part of the questionnaire, because on these dating sites, not that I have any personal experience with this at all.
That's not funny. That's not funny.
But on these dating sites, they have a whole host of personality. So just hypothetically, if we were putting together an empath dating site, I think that we would have to include questions that would measure also their ability to set boundaries, because I think that is one of the things that is a pitfall for empaths. And if they can't set healthy boundaries,
no, Patty, the thing about it, it's very difficult if you're an empath to set boundaries because they struggle, they suffer inside, right? Being able to feel other people's shit is not an easy thing, right?
It's usually unpleasant. Yeah, maybe instead of the dating site, we should start a school to show empaths how to set boundaries. That would be better. I think
actually that's a good idea.
That would be better than dating.
The reason why that's a good idea is because
that's cool. Yeah,
no, honestly,
like
yeah, the dating site would fail. You want to know why the dating site would fail?
Because narcissists would show up.
No, because all the empaths would just date each other.
Mm.
Like,
Oh, that's
It would-
true. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
yeah, you're right. I mean, a school of psychic defense would be a
Yes.
very good thing for an empath.
Yes.
Because I do know a few of these people who are very who have this empath thing, and they just stay indoors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Well, especially now. I mean, the world is, the world is pretty rough right now. I mean, it's gotten worse. And so, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, like the people I know who are more empathic right now are really going through a lot. Like
Yeah.
they're struggling, and I can have empathic tendencies, but I really don't, I don't know how I've managed, but but I do know people who I guess are probably much more empathetic than I am, who are really having a rough go of it.
There's many ways that I suppose this would be really valuable to share experiences on techniques and methods that we know work. Because there are lots of things that people can do. When you're an empath, that doesn't mean you have to absorb everybody's dirty energy.
Right.
But if you don't do something about it, that's exactly what happens.
Mhm.
And it becomes uncomfortable, painful, sometimes destructive. So maybe we could talk about this in another recording.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
that'd be awesome.
yeah. We're gonna have the school for empaths. Patty, you into this?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm totally in. Yeah, I'll totally. I could just, I could just teach from my own experiences of screwing up.
That's valuable stuff, you see, because the empathetic ability is far more common than is acknowledged.
Yeah, I think it's wouldn't you say, Amir, that it's almost like a basic human ability? I think it comes
Exactly right.
it comes with our wiring.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah, standard issue in the human.
yeah, but here's the thing: if you've escaped puberty and you're fully in that empathic thing, life becomes a little bit different for you. So yeah, we absolutely need to do a little bit of a recording on that. Well, guys, we have come to the end of our show. And so I want to say that this has been a pleasure as usual. This show is, this show was a pleasure to me. Thank you, Patty.
Awesome.
After all of that introduction about I'm not this, I'm not that, you've given us a lot to think about.
Guess what, huh?
All right, Amir, you and Patty have the last word. Go ahead.
Ladies first, please.
Well, for just being such lovely company this afternoon and for such a wonderful conversation. I highly value conversations like this. They're rare, and so they're precious to me. And I want to thank you both for that. I want to let any listeners know that if you are interested in any of the other stuff I do, you can find me at Patty Lucia Writes. So that's Patty with an I, Lucia Writes as in I write, WRITES. And that's where you'll find my books and some podcasts and so forth. And I do have a couple of podcasts. I have Patty Lucia and This Amazing Body. And both of those can be found in all of the usual podcast places. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I look forward to the next time, David.
Excellent. We're definitely going to do that show on Empaths. Amir, to you.
Well, esteemed ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for staying with us up to this point. We set out on this adventure with the objective of harmony, with beauty, with elegance, and I think it came together really nicely. I'm sure that we all feel elated. It's just light upon light upon light, with honesty, without any expectation of anything from anybody. I hope that what we talked about is of benefit to you, because that's really another of our primary objectives, to help people with stuff we know is true. We honestly know is true and is beneficial. So hopefully there'll be many more of these gatherings and we can continue to do what we really love doing. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Guys, I want to take you away. Thank you, Patty. Once again.
All right. Love you guys. See you next time.